What if you allow yourself to be wired differently? Aloha, my beautiful soul. Today we're starting this weekly series of, I'm going to call them inspirations about the laws of energy that we have on this plane that will help you as an witchy and or highly sensitive ADHDer create the life that you want to create. And one of the very first steps that we can do is to understand that we're allowed to be wired differently. You've probably had, maybe you've felt this, that, sometimes that you have felt like something's wrong with you. Like, why are you so different than everybody else? What is maybe even broken? Is there something that is not working properly? Why can't you do it like everybody else does? Why can't you just, I remember a friend once telling me, I wish I could just have one thought and just follow through and from start to finish and, follow that passion and not be side quested by so many other things. And I understand, because it's us wanting to fit in, because we feel like we're constantly fighting ourselves because we're trying to fit in. We want to be like the others. Everybody else says, this is how it's supposed to be. This is how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to wake up every morning at 6 and then start and journal and work and then do your sports and then journal. And then by 8 o'clock in the morning, you can get started and be working already. I don't know any ADHDer where this works. At least not the ones that are not too masked and too, already in the high functioning mode. I have tried and I've met, and I'm not saying that it doesn't work, because there's a neurospiciness, more on the autistic spectrum that loves those kind of structures. And it's amazing. And please, please, please do it if that's your thing. Then, maybe it's not this, maybe it's something else that makes you feel wrong. Maybe because you wanted to have more, be able to understand social cues better. That's something I've struggled with myself. How sometimes people flirt with you somewhere. Yeah, I don't know, because sometimes I don't recognize it because I don't know those kind of social cues. Okay, admittedly, I was raised sort of in Latin America, but also sort of in Germany. So I'm kind of a little bit in between cultures there. So I'm not really sure when which cue is proper. But I'm not really sure if that's because I was raised in different countries or because I'm just ADHD and I'm not very good with, social cues all the time. But this is something that has made me feel broken, like I'm not good enough, like there's something wrong with me. But in the end of the day, the thing is that, and this is something that I find very important for all of us, is that we're allowed, and I'm saying it specifically like this, we are allowed to take responsibility for us being different. We are allowed to be different. And the thing is that the more we fight ourselves, the less we're going to get, working. The more we're actually going to be running into depression, into overwhelm, into all of those things. Because why do we become overwhelmed? Because we try to be not neurospicy. We try to be not highly sensitive. And that's when we have this resistance towards ourselves. This is actually something my therapist gave me, because of course, when I was burned out, I went into therapy. And I remember at one point, my therapist telling me, and this has to do with, she explained it to me through my cultures, but I feel that this works for our neurospiciness very perfectly. Because she said that I have this treasure of being Chinese, Ecuadorian, German, right? I have this treasure chest and I never use it because I always see only the negatives, the negative cues of this culture, that culture, and that culture. But what if I change my point of view? What if I reframe it that I'm allowed to react in a Chinese way or in an Ecuadorian or in a German kind of way to something? So now let's wrap this in, let's map this in for our ADHD. What if I'm allowed to be overwhelmed with certain forms of energies? What if I'm allowed to sleep in the morning? What if I'm allowed to not wanting to hang out with certain people? What if I'm allowed to, not understand all the social cues? What if I'm allowed to do all that? What kind of reframe does that become? That I'm allowed to be myself, my true self, and stop resisting myself. What if I take the responsibility 100% for who I am, the way I am? I'm introverted. And if you ask a lot of people in my field, a lot of my friends, especially my older friends, they go nuts when I tell them, that I'm actually introverted. And they go look at me and like, when you hang out with your friends on Oktoberfest, or when you're online, you allow yourself to be seen on YouTube, on Instagram. I've been doing this for years. And how come you're introverted? I can't believe that you are. It's because people don't see that I actually do that. I don't mind going and, there's certain things that I love doing and I want to do them. Like, for example, Oktoberfest. And then I go there, I enjoy that fest with no alcohol, by the way. And then I return home and I need a break of 2 or 3 days of, no people, at least 2 or 3 days of no people to be able to, go back or do other stuff. But I allow that. I allow myself to do so because I'm allowed to be different. I'm allowed to plan for myself because I want to plan if I go somewhere, I want to have enough recovery time afterwards. It's okay for me. I'm allowing myself to do so. And if you're here, I hope that this inspires you to allow yourself to be different, to be wired different, to reframe this for yourself, to understand you're not broken. And here come the labels. You're not broken. Maybe you're just a goose inside of a chicken hen. And as a goose, you've been trying to be like the chicken, but you're not. You're a goose. A goose is different. So allow yourself to be that different. It's okay. You're not broken just because everybody else, is different. Let's reframe that for ourselves together. And with that, let's take responsibility for who we are, because we're amazing. Because we have a treasure chest of traits. They might seem far away and they might seem, hard to change, because when you're overwhelmed, when you're, when your thoughts are going all over the place, when you're having 1,000 ideas and then you go into paralysis, I know it's hard in those moments. And please, I completely understand. But what if, because you're reframing it, that you're not broken, your whole system starts to understand yourself better and to know when to set certain boundaries, when to give you resting time. You see, and already just allowing yourself to be resting, that it's okay to be resting. No, we don't have to be in 100% hustling mode, if you know what I mean. All right. So to wrap it up, my wonderful soul, take with yourself the reframe that you're not broken. You just have different traits, and those traits are wired a little bit different than everybody else's. But trust me, the more you take responsibility for yourself and for who you are, you're going to be attracting the right kind of people that understand that for you.